Hello, it's the Anfield Rapids. John Gibbons hosting this week, and I'm joined by Lizzi Doyle, by Kev Walsh, and by Jamie Webster to talk about all the latest Liverpool news. It's a show in 4 parts today, you lucky people. Coming up, Neil Atkinson has spoken to Dale Johnson from ESPN about the fixtures next season, how tight it all is and how compact it is, and you know, with the relentless football we have to look forward to. We're going to be talking a little bit about that in part 1 in relation to transfers. We're also going to be talking about the fan update. A lot of you have got in touch with us asking us to talk about that and the process around that, so we will. And also, the LFC Women have announced their new fixtures, so a few of us have had a little chat about that. That was pre-recorded yesterday, and so that'll be going on at the end. Looking forward to the new LFC Women's season. But first of all, we've almost signed a player. I was going to say we've signed a player, Lizzie. It's not quite over the line yet. It might be by the time this comes out. It's a Greek left back, which is the one they all wanted. Kostas Tsimikas, I'm going for. I'm sticking with it. Obviously, you know all about him, so tell all of us how good he is.
He's dead good. I'm just going to leave it there. I was amazed if we pronounced it that way because I pronounced it that way as well. I was quite surprised to see that we hadn't... I thought Jamal Lewis was the one we were going for. I remember seeing this fella's name banded about before the Jamal Lewis stuff started to really kick on. But then I did think that's the number 1 target. But I think what's clearly happened is they've been quite clever. And Norwich have obviously asked for too much money. And they've, instead of just trying to go back and forth, they've gone, right, okay, well, that's it. And they've moved on to the next target. So, yeah, I mean, I hope he's decent. At the end of the day, he's got to come in and sort of, you know, he's fighting for a place against what I think is the best left back in Europe. So good luck to the fella. I mean, I really hope he does well. But it is a place that we've needed to cover for a long, long time. And I think there'll be nobody happier than this signing than James Milner.
Yeah, it's a position that we could do with strengthen, Jamie, but are you a little bit surprised that left back's the first one we've gone to do, or do you think it's just a case of, you know, there'll be other things we want to do this summer and this is just the opportunity that's opened up first?
Well, I think, to be honest, I think we need to strengthen in all areas where we need to, basically. So left back is one of them. So I'm not surprised that we've gone there first, to be honest. I think he looked at Nico Williams playing left back, didn't he, towards the back end of the season. He sort of threw him in at the deep end against City. You know, he's tried a few different options, and he obviously doesn't. You know, he feels that that's where we need the most cover. You've got to look at where Andy Robbo does week in, week out. You know what I mean? He covers literally every play, the grass. And when he doesn't play, we don't have that balance on the left-hand side, you know what I mean, with the full-backs pushing on us. I mean, Milner does a great job, but, you know, it'd be nice to have someone naturally left-sided who's quite young, can get up and down still, you know what I mean? Listen, I'm talking about this lad like I know what he can do. I honestly, I don't know too much about him at all. And, you know, gone are the days of me looking on YouTube for, you know, them sort of clips where you'd see him scoring the only 5 goals that he've scored in a career, do you know what I mean, and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm just thankful that we're signing where we need to, you know what I mean. I think, all right, we all said at the start of last season that, you know, we needed to strengthen, and we didn't, and we won the league in a landslide. So, you know, there's never going to be too much criticism from me in terms of why aren't we signing players? But it's nice to see that we are strengthening in positions that Jürgen obviously feels that we need. It'd be interesting to see what happens next, really. But yeah, look good if the lad comes to Liverpool, whether it is this lad or if the Jamal Lewis thing's over, you know, good luck to him. Like Lizzie said, he's Andy Robbo's boots are big ones to fill at the moment, but you've got a great player to learn from. And, you know, as Liverpool fans, we get behind him, don't we? As soon as they come in, and I'm sure the first time he plays for us, you'll get a great reception. And, you know, hopefully he can just do what he needs to do to be the replacement for Andy Robbo.
Have you been on his YouTube? Have you been scouting him?
No, I haven't actually. To be fair, I was going to, but then I realised I'd left it well too late, and Lizzie had already sent the email for the show around. So I'm just going to assume, like Jamie said there, it shows about 3 or 4 unbelievable goals, like to boss like Euro dance music, and think, yeah, it's going to be absolutely sound. You know what I mean? I'm easily pleased, to be honest. But as Jamie said there, we needed strengthening in the left back, and as Lizzie said, James Milner will be absolutely delighted because he's too old to be doing that job up and down now. I know he's a fit lad, but he doesn't want to be running up and down that wing anymore. And for what, 10 million or 11 million quid. It's chicken feed, you know what I mean? I know, obviously, maybe not for Liverpool at the moment, the way we're going, but I think for that type of money, you're not going to lose money on him. You wouldn't have thought, would you? So even if it goes one way or the other. But you'd imagine with our recent record in signings that he probably has got what it takes to be a Liverpool player, or at least he's got the base, and if he works hard enough, he'll be able to push himself forward. And he's never going to be first choice, I wouldn't imagine. But next season, if we want to have maybe a little proper, not a little go, a real go at the domestic cups, maybe the FA Cup, less so the League Cup, we're going to need players to come in, because Andy Robertson can't be playing like the way that he does every 3 days, because nobody could. You'd have to be Superman to keep that sort of level up.
Yeah, Lizzie, we've sort of had a laugh about James Milner. Jamie mentioned Nico Williams there as well. You know, Klopp likes players who can play in a few positions, but I think it is notable when we put a right footer there in terms of how it changes how we play. And look, there's always, you know, you can't play Trent and Robbo every game, and you're not going to find someone at Robbo's level who's necessarily going to be able to play, you know, who's going to be happy to sort of come in and out. But I think just having someone that's their position, that's their specialist position, I think will make a big difference for us. You know, it's frustrating always seeing someone on there cutting in. Do you know what I mean? Always someone coming in. It must be frustrating for the strikers as well. You want that quick ball, and it's always an extra touch. I think it will make a big difference for us to be able to have a specialist who's able to come in there rather than someone who's just trying the best.
Yeah, it's definitely going to make a big difference to have a natural left back coming in. I think for Liverpool as well, it's no secret that our full backs are our greatest weapon, aren't they? I mean, they're almost like our midfielders. So the second you take away someone like Andy Robertson or Trent, who really, you know, they're the wide men, aren't they? And the second you start cutting in, you see the difference in the front three as well, because they work in tandem with each other. You know, Mane and Robertson have this relationship and like this almost telepathy. And I think, I can't remember what show we were talking about it on, and I think it was an Anfield Wrap a couple of weeks ago where we used to talk about the front three like all working together, whereas now actually I don't think it's about the front three working together. I think it's about how Mane and Robertson and Trent and Salah work, and that's how we basically play our games now. So it will be a lot better. I think we will see a difference. I mean, it's no one's going to be expecting him to be Andy Robertson, because only Andy Robertson can be Andy Robertson, but it would be nice to just know you've got someone that little bit more of a step up. And that's no disrespect to James Milner, who I think does a great job when he comes in, and even Nico Williams. But you do need, like Kev said, especially with the step ups in terms of like the domestic cups, but also in the league, you've seen it where this season where we've had like Champions League games, and then we've had like a league game, and they've been a bit tired. That he wants to rest one of the fullbacks. It is in the league as well. It's not just in the domestics, is it? So it'll be good to have someone come in who is more of a natural left footer who will probably enhance our game a bit more.
Yeah, no, let's hope. So the fixtures come thick and fast, Jamie, once they start up. And as I say, Neil's going to speak to Dale Johnson about this in more detail. But from what he's shared, you just look at it and think that is a lot of games. You know, it's unlikely to be a winter break this year. I'm not sure if it's been sort of fully decided, but I just can't see how they're going to sort of fit one in. And we're going to need a few more bodies, you know, regardless of positions. You know, you can't just be expecting people to go and go. And Jurgen Klopp, you know, himself, you know, speaks out about footballers all the time. He wants to look after them, and you want them sort of available when you really need them as well. And so, just generally speaking, you know, to get someone else in, to get another body in who can give Andy a rest when we need to, who's able to perform at a hopefully at a high level. And look, this guy's played European football. He's just won the league with his club. You know, is a positive.
Yeah, definitely, John. And I think over the next couple of weeks, you might see us getting linked with a couple more players who are, you know, maybe not superstars, maybe not players who are going to break into the first 11. Do you know what I mean? There might be players around, you know, 15, 20 million pound players, and that's sheerly because you know what's demanded of this Liverpool team throughout a normal season. The amount of, you know, the high intensity that they play at all over the park, and you know, for next season, obviously the games are coming thicker and faster. We're gonna need the we're going to need to play at that level, you know, on a more frequent basis, if you like.
Yeah.
So, you know, to sign a player like that, it's very reassuring as a Liverpool fan. You know what I mean? You know that we're still looking to stay exactly where we are, and we're going to be playing at the same intensity that we have done. Everyone's going to be just as focused. But yeah, I think with letting a couple of players go, like Lallana, like Lovren, I think you will see. All right, listen, I'm just saying to anyone who might be watching or listening, you know, don't be getting disheartened if we're not signing the likes of Thiago's or, you know, all these big players, because I think on paper anyway, our best 11 is one of the best in the world, if not the best. It is the best in the world in my opinion as a team, and all we need is players who can come in and maintain that level of just doing their job and you know, not superstars but as a team player. And I think that's what's going to come next for Liverpool now. I think you'll see us signing maybe 3 or 4 players who will just be, you know, squad players this season and come on and sort of just keep energy levels high over the course of the season. Do you know what I mean? And that's sound for me. All that means is to me that we're going to have another go this year, and that's what you want to hear, isn't it?
No, it's right. You feel a bit for Jamal Lewis, Kev, whose Liverpool career is probably one of the shortest ever. Do you know what I mean? Like at the weekend, it was looking likely, and then suddenly it's not. What did you make of sort of how sort of public it was? Do you think that was a little bit of a last throw of the dice from Liverpool? Do you think it was his agents, you know, throwing that in there just to kind of force things a little bit? Because it did seem very un-Liverpool to have it all out. You know, we knew all the details of what Liverpool were prepared to offer, what Norwich were prepared to offer. And normally, you know, we keep our cards pretty close to our chest. So do you think it was a little bit of, you know, us having one last little go of it, or do you think it was the agent maybe being a bit worried that it wasn't going to happen and we were looking somewhere else? Or was the plan to get this Greek fella all along and we were just forcing Olympiacos?
It'd be absolutely arse on Jamal Lewis if that was the plan all along. You know what I mean? Stringing him along, you really have got a feel for him, because obviously he's playing at Norwich now. They've just been relegated, and Liverpool, the current Premier League champions, European champions, World champions, come in. Jurgen Klopp's the manager, and he must have just been like, oh my God, like this is like Christmas Day. And obviously Norwich, I think it's 20 million they want somewhere, willing to offer 10. So I'd say the publicity is more likely to have come either from his agents to try and force the move through, or maybe Norwich just want to try and get a little bit of a bidding war going. So they've sort of let the cat out the bag, what they want to accept and what we've offered. But for do you know what I mean? The likelihood is he's going to move somewhere else anyway. But I feel sorry for him, because wherever he lands up, obviously it's not going to be as good as Liverpool. And I was thinking before, like, if you were him, I wonder how much he's earned through footy already, and whether you just say, I'll pay the rest of it myself, do you know what I mean, to get that move to Liverpool. Because I'm not sure, maybe that's a little bit over the top, but you can imagine it, like the desperation he must have felt to try and get the move. And then obviously this Greek lad's going to come in and he'll be absolutely buzzing himself. But obviously Jamal Lewis, he's a British lad, isn't he? I think he plays for Northern Ireland. I don't know whether he's actually born there or whether he's one of them ones who's as man went there once, so he gets the opportunity to play type of thing. But yeah, he's had a nightmare, Jamal Lewis, and hopefully his nightmare is the other fella's dream, and he can come in and get into the Liverpool team and win a European Cup next year, or a league, or whatever it is that he manages to help us bring back to Anfield.
You're a very media savvy person, Lizzie. What did you make of sort of the stories over the weekend and how this story kind of broke and developed? Because it all happened sort of quite fast, really.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it at all, and like I think Sean Walsh, who does our social media, posted a video of Jamal Lewis talking about like his hardest opponent who he played against this year, and it was Mo Salah winning it, and he was just absolutely buzzing about Mo Salah. And you could see in the way that he was talking about Liverpool, it was like it's almost magical. And I think if you're a Norwich player, you've just been relegated, and someone like Liverpool's coming in, you're going to be begging your agent, aren't you? I'm wondering actually if like Jamal Lewis is fuming, you know, that they didn't take like 10 million, because he's not asked whether he's worth 10 or 20. He'll want to go and play for Liverpool, whereas the club have obviously naturally had to put the foot down. The agents had to do what the agents done. But if I was him, I would be livid that I've not gone to Liverpool for the sake of 10 million. But you know what I mean? And I think it did come out of nowhere. I was quite surprised when I saw like the tweets, like when it all started to come out from like the usual journalists. And I thought, well, that's it then, isn't it? Like that's done. The second like Mel speaks or Paul Joyce speaks and says a medical's on its way, you pretty much know that that's the truth. And I sort of felt a little bit for him. And I think Jamal Lewis is a bit younger than this lad as well, isn't he? So this Kostas Tsimikas is 24. And I think Jamal Lewis is younger than him. So that was another thing in my mind. But still, listen, 24, he's not as if he's 40 years of age, is it? Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, he'll get snapped up by someone else, I'm sure. He's a good little player. He's a good young player. And it'd be nice to see him come back to another team in the Premier League, even if it's not us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We will see sort of what happens on that. Oh, I felt very old there. 38 I am, Lizzie, but I've still got things to offer. Don't you worry about that. What do you think? What do you expect the next one, Jamie? I mean, you talked about it a little bit before. The transfer window doesn't actually close till October the 5th, I think it is. I did find that before. So there's October the 5th, the transfer window closes. So it's slightly longer. So in your head, you think, oh, it's August, we've got to get stuff done. But actually, there is quite a bit of time for Liverpool. And, if you get this one over the line, then great, that's sort of one done. But there is a bit of a time to do a little bit more. And obviously, there might be a couple more outs as well. Are you expecting much more from Liverpool in this window?
I think to just strengthen depth in a couple of places. Do you know what I mean? I think it'd be nice to get another centre half in, because with Lovren going out the door, I just think that Matip, as good as Matip and Gomez are great, but like Matip, as much as I love him, and I love that video that you put up of him the other day for his birthday, where he's doing that behind behind the World Club Cup. I thought that was amazing. But in terms of like his injury like record, he gets injured about three times a season. Do you know what I mean? He's not. While he is reliable backup when he's there, he's not reliable in the sense that he's not always there. And I don't think that some of the younger defenders that we've got at the moment, like Sepp, Vandenberg or whoever, I don't think that they're good enough to come in for 3, 4, 5 games and play. So I think another centre half, another sort of established centre. I'm not saying Koulibaly, you know what I mean? That'd be ideal. But things being the way they are at the moment in the world, it's not likely that we're going to go and splash out another 60, 70 million on a centre half. But a decent centre half would be nice. Maybe something in midfield, do you know what I mean? To keep with Leanne going out the door. You don't know who might go out the door as well. Keep things fresh there. And I think some sort of backup for the likes of Salah, Mane, or Firmino. I think we need some sort of plan B up top for when them lads aren't fit. We all know my love for Divock Origi, but I think too many times this year he came on and he didn't quite step up to the level that he did the year before. Got a great goal at the last game of the season against Newcastle, but I think just on out wide, I think we need something. I think as well as Salah and Mane, because they're going to play. And looking at we're just talking about the run of games that we've got. There's going to be so many games in football. Yeah, you're going to make an argument for maybe Harvey Elliott and a couple of the younger players, but I think we're talking about being champions of absolutely everything here. We're talking about instilling and remaining in dominance. So I think we need a couple, not massive signings, but a couple of big professionals to come in and be back up and around the squad just for when the big players do get missing and you need to call on someone with a bit of experience and a bit of talent to dig it out when you're in a time of trouble. You see, Jadon Shaqiri for me does no wrong, but he never plays, so I don't know what's going to happen there. So if we need to. I think it all surrounds who goes out. You know what I mean? I think if a couple of players go out, then we're going to look at the squad a little bit thinner, and But listen, I've got full confidence in Jürgen and the boys. You know what I mean? I think that they know what they're doing. Even just the likes of that signing with the Greek lad. I'm just going to call him the Greek lad at left back. I'm not making a fool of myself trying to pronounce his name wrong. But in terms of him, with that Jamal Lewis, we haven't been enticed into a bidding war with Norwich. Do you know what I mean? We're not going to be bullied anymore in transfers. We've done that in the past. Do you know what I mean? And we've had some shockers, but now I think we are a club who aren't going to be bullied into paying 20, 30 million pounds for basically players who haven't done anything yet. Do you know what I mean? I think we're going to be sensible and we're going to be like you say, that the minute that come out about a minute bit more with Norwich, we just went, nah, you know what, swerve you straight away, we'll go and get this kid. And that's what it's going to be like. I think once the rumours start circulating around players too long and they're talking about arguments with prices, Liverpool just aren't going to be interested. We'll just go and get someone else. Do you know what I mean? And I think there'll be if we do sign players, I think there may be a couple of surprises in there. But that's what's good about transfer windows. Do you know what I mean? That's what reminds you of being a kid again when a new player signs and you're like, who's he? What's he done? You know what I mean? But yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing what comes. I think the team that we've got at the moment, you know, even when with the full 16, 17 fit, I think we're better than everyone still. Anyway, but it'd be nice to have a few fresh faces as always. Do you know what I mean?
Kev, have you got Thiago on the back of your new Liverpool shirt? Yeah.
Thiago tattoo, mate, innit? I'm all in. I didn't even watch that Chelsea game the other day, and I'm all in on him. Someone said he was boss, and that's enough for me. You know what I mean? I think he looks like he's pretty much done him. Just from the way it's all been made public, and there's been no denials whatsoever. It just feels like once Bayern Munich hopefully win the Champions League this year, then we can have them sort of for next season. The rest of the squad, I'm still worried. I'm not FSG out or any like that, but I'm a little bit worried that they're going to be a little bit too sensible. I feel like this window's an opportunity. We're looking at it as a threat because of the lack of revenue we've had in. But it feels to me like we could possibly be missing an opportunity because there's going to be some big moves happening for some big players. And we're in a position whereby our squad is perfect now, but in 2 years' time it might not be. And the players that you're going to be looking to sign to replace Salah and Mane, Firmino in 2 years' time, if they're moving in this window, you're going to be getting them for half the money than you'd be getting them for them. I'm not going to go back on about Timo Werner because I think everyone knows my feelings on that. We've absolutely shit the bed with that deal, in my opinion. So I am going to go on about him again. Fuck it.
Anyone who's friends with Kev knows if someone's way of saying once, it's way of saying 40 times.
Well, there we are. As for the rest of the squad, I think the centre-half one's quite interesting because there's been no real solid links. And I think we're well stocked in midfield. So it wouldn't surprise me if we're maybe thinking Van der Beek and Hoover, probably a little bit too young, but maybe towards the end of the season they could come in. But maybe we're thinking about putting Fabinho as the fourth choice centre-half and just saying to Mata, your second choice after obviously the first two. I think Fabinho's played there a lot already. I don't think there's anything on the football pitch Fabinho can't do. He's absolutely brilliant. My only worry with that would be obviously the fact that you're taking him out of the midfield because he's sort of like a one-man wrecking machine. Him, along with Van Dijk, allow Liverpool to attack with basically every player. Yeah. Knowing full well that if the opposition does counter-attack, that if they get past him, they're going to be very lucky to get past Van Dijk as well. And it's just finding someone who can do that job in the middle because I think it's a lot of unsung. Like you're not getting the glory for what you're really doing because a lot of what you're doing is just insurance work. You're just there to make sure they think, shit, I'm going to get past that. It's not necessarily the most glamorous thing. It's probably something Henderson would happily step in and do because he's willing to do whatever job needed from him. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if we don't sign another centre half and maybe we're thinking one of them for the young kids for next year can come in and be the fourth choice and you don't want to block the path there. We definitely need some backup up front because I think. As Jamie said, we all love him. He's a Liverpool legend, not a folk hero. He's a Liverpool legend for what he's done for the club. But this season hasn't been his greatest season, and I think for David Origi, he'd suit going somewhere and playing every game. The start, if he played for Wolves, he'd look like a Raul Jimenez, I think, because if he played 20 games on the spin with a team focused on getting him the ball, he'd score goals. But when he comes into the Liverpool team, he's coming in and fits and starts, and he's playing on the left wing. And I think he's done as well as he could be expected to do coming into our team. But I'd like to see someone just a little bit more. I think it's a little bit more fluid we need from the replacements. We need someone who can get involved in the sort of intricate passing that we need to get going up front. And David Origi isn't that man. So it'd be interesting to see if we can get someone else in up front. So I think Shaqiri will probably go if we can get any sort of money for him. He's very injury prone, isn't he? And the rest of it's just tinkering. It's just adding bodies if we do want to have a go at the cups. And you've got Nico Williams now. You'd say he's a first teamer. Do you know what I mean? He's the first replacement for Trent. You've got obviously Curtis Jones who's come in and he's put his mark on that midfield. And I think you'll be getting 15 to 20 games next year. I don't think there'll be any problems with that. Harvey Elliott obviously is a young kid, but has shown great quality when he's come in, and Klopp obviously trusts him. So he's going to be getting games as well. So we're we're not screaming out for loads of players, but what we do need to be is very careful the ones that we get. And I think it's as much about attitude and ability to learn as it is about the current levels. And as Jamie said before, you can't say anything about the club's current transfer strategy because they've been spot on with it for the last few years. I just hope we don't miss an opportunity this year to maybe get someone. If someone big becomes available, I hope we don't miss that opportunity.
Yeah, it's just a funny window, isn't it, Lizzie, just to sort of finish up in that, last season's games are still going. Rangers are in this bizarre situation where they're playing two different seasons in 1 week. For it's obviously the Champions League still going, which does affect, the markets a little bit, and it's October the 5th, as I said before, and so, although it'd be nice to sort of, looks like we're going to get a left back over the line, if it is a little bit of wait, for some others, we'll have to be maybe a little bit patient. Obviously, Jürgen normally likes his players early, but I'm sure he's aware of the situation, and, it could be a case of, things happen a bit later than normal.
Yeah, it's weird actually when you start thinking about the fact that it's October the 5th. That feels like ages away, doesn't it? Like we're talking about now, like why are we not being linked to like centre halves or like another forward, or why is the Thiago stuff not moving quicker than we thought? And I didn't realise actually until you've said it. That's such a long time.
Yeah.
And you are right. The Champions League does play a factor in it because the likes of Bayern Munich, who obviously they finished their season before the likes of the English clubs and the Italian clubs and the Spanish clubs. So they've got to like refocus. And the last thing that they need is like one of their star midfielders trying to get a move across the line and going back and forth and his mind being filled. Like it wouldn't surprise me if like a lot of teams have sort of put blockers on and said, just like, do us a favour, let us do this first before we start to have like negotiations and talks and stuff. So it will be interesting to see how it pans out. I mean, I do think we'll see another 1 to 2 players. In terms of Thiago, for me, I'm not as sold as it on Kev. I think I want to be, but I think because like for me, the team over and stuff, I thought we were, and then it sort of fell through. And I think what's going to happen, and this is just me predicting with what FSG usually do, is we're going to have to see a couple more out. So I think Harry Wilson's going to definitely be one of them, and I reckon you'll get 15 to 20 million. I mean, there's talks of him. I think I've seen like something about like Leeds or something like that. So you're looking at getting a few bob for him, and then let's say making up about 10 to 15 million elsewhere before you could go and sign Thiago. I think that's going to be the case still. I don't think in the year that FSG keeps talking about how hard it is for them financially more than ever, that they're going to change strategy and start spending loads of money where they're not used to. So I think you'll see a few out. There is some players there that you might forget about that are on loan. The likes of Grujic, he's really highly rated, isn't he, at the minute, where he's a Hertha Berlin, isn't he? And they might go, well, we'll pay 15 to 20 million for him. So I think we have to see what happens with the fringe players first, see how much money FSG have got to spend, and I think that will indicate sort of how many players or what type of players do come in.
Yeah, we shall see. Okay, we've chatted a couple of times. We're going to go to Neil's chat with Dale Johnson now. We've talked a little bit about why it's more important than ever to have cover next season, and this is a little bit more detail on why we think that is the case. So this is Neil with Dale Johnson.
It is Neil Atkinson joined by Dale Johnson from ESPN to talk about the schedule. Now, the schedule may seem dry, and it may seem at times as though it's things that people like me worry about, not least because of work, but also in general, lists and stuff like that. But in truth, it's going to have a major, major bearing on how the season unfolds. It's going to put pressure on a lot of clubs in a lot of different ways. I'll get into that now with Dale. But the first thing I'd say as well, on top of all of this, Dale, is it still isn't finalised. It still isn't confirmed. And that's something else that's going to impact football clubs. I think your guess is as good as any guess will be. And we'll go on to talk about it in a minute. But it is crazy to think that the new season is going to kick off. The Charity Shield is less than 30 days away. The new season as a whole is about 34 days away. And still football clubs don't quite know what it is they're going to be faced with.
Yes, it's very true. I mean, we're talking obviously mainly about the Premier League and the top level of competitions here, but even when you go down just to League One and League Two, there are clubs that are saying that we can't start in September, it's got to be October at the earliest. And obviously, while that is probably something that may become a reality as we get closer to it, this has an impact on things like the Carabao Cup, which needs the early rounds to be played for it to move forward like it should do. So it's going to be interesting to see just how they manage to get a framework in. We look at the Champions League and the Europa League. They're already saying that they're having to put in a framework whereby teams may have to forfeit games if they can't play them due to the coronavirus. So there's going to be some very strange situations, some very twists and turns in this. I think when we see how the schedule finally pans out.
On the schedule as a whole, I think one of the major aspects of it is the number of different people who almost need to work their problems out before even these different. Because again, when you think about the schedule, you presume there's one body that's on top of it all, but it isn't. It all has to plug in together, and that now also, for instance, if Manchester City were to win the Champions League, that would go all the way to FIFA from English football's point of view with the Club World Cup as well. And then you've obviously got a Super Cup situation possibly brewing. You've obviously got a Champions League and Europa League situation. You've got the Premier League. And then you've got the FA and the EFL. And I think it's, I'd love to get the inside story on how all of these things have to sort of interlock, share information to be able to get results and actually get a schedule out.
Well, the national associations meet with UEFA to discuss how they're going to put the calendar together. But at the end of the day, UEFA will have a calendar and they'll say, this is what we're going to do. So let's take, for example, the Champions League, when they came out and announced that the Champions League group stage this year would be played in 2 blocks of 3, either side of the international break in November. Now, obviously, that automatically sends a message to the leagues of this is when you can arrange fixtures.
Yeah.
And that basically means that you can't schedule the Carabao Cup for those weeks. You can't schedule Premier League rounds for those weeks. So it totally means the leagues are then going to sit down and say, how do we make this work? Now, what actually that Champions League thing has basically told us now is the teams that are in Europe cannot play full-strength teams in the Carabao Cup. It's just impossible. There are no weeks there for rounds 1, 2 and 3 whereby teams in Europe can take place. They don't have a spare weekend. Let's take Tottenham as an example. They start on the 17th of September in Europa League qualifying. Those 3 weeks were all Europa League qualifying, then it's international break, and then the Europa League group stage starts, and that takes up the next 6 weeks. So it's completely impossible for Tottenham to play the Carabao Cup with their first team. So this is what we're going to see happen. I think it's almost certain that the Carabao Cup will go ahead, but with the teams in Europe will play their under-23 teams in the earlier rounds. And I suspect they may continue it through because they've done well.
The one thing that occurred to me that they could do with the Carabao Cup, and I don't think they will because of the thing you've just said about League One and League Two sides, but they could almost play rounds 1, 2, 3 and 4 of the Carabao Cup on approximately the 8th of September, the 17th of September, 24th of September and 1st of October. I wondered if they might try and just almost say, well, all right, it's going to undermine Tottenham, but it means everybody else can at least get the first 4 rounds played in that run. But the issue there is the EFL clubs themselves, and it's their competition. So they would be in a position where they may not be able to pick full-strength teams themselves, or would still be trying to work out, one of the values of the EFL Cup is it gets people into grounds and lower league grounds. And that obviously is highly unlikely to be happening in September as well.
Yeah, I mean, that has been suggested. One of those suggestions was that they may play the first round on the 29th of August, which is obviously the same date as the Community Shield. But yeah. I think the feeling was that it was just going to be too soon to be even considering playing behind closed doors at that level. So we're going to have to see just how that pans out. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just really tough to find a schedule that's going to work for the Carabao Cup in its current format. Now, one of the important people always say to me, "Oh, just ditch the Carabao Cup, ditch the Carabao Cup." It's just really not that simple because the Carabao Cup TV deal is about a third of the income from the TV broadcast rights for the lower leagues. Yeah. If you cancel the Carabao Cup, then they lose a third of their income, forgetting about the fact that they're losing their match day income as well. So it's just, while people think the Carabao Cup is a distraction, firstly, it isn't for the lower league clubs for the money it earns. And secondly, it's a little bit of a red herring because if you look at the schedule and the big teams don't come into it until the 26th of December on the one I've put here, the quarterfinals, in terms of being able to play a first team. So you're only really talking that 2 match days it takes out of the schedule you can build. So the FA Cup, that takes out far more match days later in the year when you need to have catch-up days. So really, the Carabao Cup it's not as a big an effect on the calendar as people think it is.
It isn't at all. I mean, the thing to point out here is as and certainly as we get into December, it'll be if ever there's a year where Premier League sides at the top end want to get a preferential Champions League group draw, it is this one because it'll be it'll be rattling for them. I think October and November. That'll be, it'll be difficult for them. But then it will be a unique challenge for the mid-table Premier League sides from the 12th of December until approximately the 13th of February. In that, a lot of the time, for instance, I've always had this argument: you very rarely play Burnley in a situation where Burnley have had a midweek game and you haven't, or even when both Liverpool and Burnley, for instance, have had a midweek game. Whereas for all these sides, and I think it will impact on transfer decisions and squad building decisions and youth player decisions, and that's both ins and outs. For all these sides, they will be looking at what will be a likely run from the 12th of December until the 13th of February. And it will be the first time something like that's happened in many a year.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, so basically the situation is that the Premier League lost the 4 rounds of games that were supposed to be played in August. It's also lost a midweek round, which is now a Champions League night. Mm-hmm. And because of the way the fixtures fall this year, there's actually 1 fewer round of games in the Christmas programme.
Yeah.
So that's 6 rounds of games they've got to fit in somewhere else. Now, you can play a midweek round in December, Premier League games, but then the only spare place to put these Premier League matches is basically in January and February before the Champions League starts again. Because when the Champions League starts again, you're back into the same routine of Champions League, week off to catch up, Champions League, Internationals, Champions League. So you've got to play these 5 rounds of Premier League games in January and February, as well as the Carabao Cup semi-final. So like you say, that means teams that are just not used to playing Saturday, Tuesday, are going to find it quite tough, and especially in January and February. So it will be interesting to see how people build their squads and how people approach these games when we get to the turn of the year.
And just the other thing I wonder is it would almost be in the Premier League's interest certainly for the 2 Manchester clubs, hypothetically, to get to the same stage of European competition. Because what they could almost do is pair them off against one another and say, well, we'll find places for that to go later in the season when they come. Because this is the other thing we're waiting on. When we're waiting on an actual practical release of the fixtures as well, one of the reasons why is the thing that they don't want to have to do, the Premier League, is announce a load of fixtures and then have to have huge disruption, not just for television, but for instance, moving 2, 3, 4 rounds of fixtures for the 2 Manchester clubs, for possibly for Wolverhampton Wanderers as well. That's the other thing that we're waiting on, aren't we, before we get a fixture list?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's been a suggestion that the teams that go far in Europe could get the first weekend or perhaps even the second weekend of Premier League games off. But as we're looking at the schedule here, where are you going to put those rearranged games?
Yeah.
Now, in terms of Wolves getting to the final and getting their 30 days holiday, it's not actually too bad, because if they won it, then they could play on Sunday the 20th, and then they would play the Cup on the 24th. But if you look at Man City, if Man City win the Champions League, it's all screwed anyway, because they've got to play the Super Cup. You're going to try and give them 2 weekends off, and then they've got to play the FIFA Club World Cup in December, and you've got nowhere to put these games that are supposed to be being rearranged. So if Man City, there's a massive headache coming up if Man City win the Champions League in terms of the schedule and in terms of moving games around. That's if the Club World Cup does have to go ahead this year, of course.
There's a chance that might be the thing that ends up getting compromised, isn't it? But you'd think FIFA would fight to the very last ditch to ensure it doesn't.
Well, they've already given up their Summer Club World Cup, which was supposed to start next year because of all the rearranged international tournaments. So I'm pretty sure they won't want to give up 2 editions of it. But in the end, something's going to have to give here in terms of how can we get this football completed. If teams get the first weekend off, the one place that they will have, if they win the European competition, the one place they will have to play a midweek game will be the midweek of September the 30th. That will be their only free midweek until 2022. 21, sorry.
It's unbelievable, and it's so much strain on the footballers. The last little thing I wanted to bring up with you was where exactly, whether or not there was ever any move to consider, curtailing the season to an extent. The thing I always argued for was play the first 19 games and then split the league into a top 10 and a bottom 10, and everyone who hasn't played each other once plays each other again. And just find a way to make that fair and almost accept that. The Premier League has actually come out, it looks as though they're going to vote to say if 50% of the league's completed, 50% of the fixtures are completed, then they'll allow a situation where they'll decide things on points per game. were you surprised that it was never even mooted? Because one of the things that occurred to me was you could probably still have the same amount of televised games and there'd be more riding on them if you split the competition into a top half and a bottom half, focused in on certain fixtures. Were you surprised that was never even mooted, or do you just think that the Premier League can't think outside of its fixed television hole?
I think it was mooted right at the very end before it became clear that returning to playing was going to be possible. They spent the first couple of months not entertaining it, but I think we got to almost to a breaking point where they thought that we're not going to get to play again, and then all of a sudden we got over the edge of this cliff and we just ran downhill and everything was fine and we managed to push on. But there were definitely lots of discussions. The problem is that nobody foresee something like this happening. So there was never anything in the rules, not just the Premier League, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
What interesting, what Belgium have done is they've now made it that if you can't play your home game this season because of COVID-related lockdown reasons, if the local authorities don't allow it, then you've got to go and play your game somewhere else on a neutral venue or you lose 3-0. Which is obviously very, very similar to what UEFA have done with the Champions League and Europa League qualifiers. So I don't know if the Premier League will put that in themselves, but it just goes to show how all these leagues are having to adapt and having to put in new rules and regulations that they never even had to consider. So I'm sure the Premier League will put something in there, just so that if this does happen next season, there is no ifs, buts, maybes, there's no null and voids, there's no arguments about whatever they may be, and it's all there in writing about what the final decision will be.
Okay, thank you very much to Dale. Let's get back over to John.
Okay, thanks a lot to Neil for that. And we're back with Lizzie, with Kevin, with Jamie. And we're going to talk about the fan update process. Season ticket holders this summer have been asked to clarify who's using the season tickets and clarify people's data. It's something that has been going on for a while now in terms of the process that the club are doing. So fan card holders, I think with 13 plus, 13 plus games on the fan cards have also done it earlier in the year, and now with season ticket holders, I think by the time they finish with it, everyone who owns a fan card will be asked to clarify who's using the ticket and to clarify the details, so there's less people who shouldn't be or who aren't even with us anymore sort of in the ground. I'm going to ask people sort of how they found it, whether they've been through the process or things they maybe heard. I'll start with you, Lizzie. Have you had to do it this year?
Yeah, so I'm one of the very, very fortunate people who is using a season ticket, but the season ticket isn't mine. So it's a family friend, it's someone from my family, and they very kindly give it to me dad and said, like, he's basically gone for years and years, and then said he wanted to pass it on to us to then use from now on, and he's more than happy for us to use it going forward and for him to sort of be done with it. So I'm very lucky that I'm in that position, and I have been going on it for a while now. So I've if I'm being honest, I've found it like really quite confusing. I've found it quite hard to do. I think like you'd originally get an email from the club saying like what you have to do, and it says like you need to update your details if you're keeping that name. Yeah. But it said like if they're correct, but if they're incorrect, meaning like your name's staying the same, but the address has changed or whatever, there was another link, but I didn't find a link. I had no idea what to do when it comes to sort of the changing of the name. They didn't make that clear enough for me. There was like, I had to search through FAQs and go through, I think 6 questions. There wasn't even a question clearly labelled for the process I was trying to complete. And it was buried in another question saying, before you complete the fan update, you must do a transfer of ownership form. Now, that wasn't on the email, and I nearly put in like the incorrect details. I don't think personally it's been very clear at all for me. And obviously, because it's through a family friend, I'm having to go, have you heard from them? Have they rang you? We did get an acknowledgement email the other day, basically saying like, hold fire, like we have got your request. We'll be in touch soon. So that made me feel a bit better. But I was seeing a lot of people in the same boat as me, where once you complete this transfer of ownership form, if you are doing that, there was no confirmation. You weren't getting a lot of communication through. But now that I think they've realised the scale of what they're trying to do, and they have sort of like got emails out just to people. I think people just wanted a reassurance of, have you received my transfer of ownership or me changing of my address or whatever. I think they're starting to get on top of that now, and they're extending the dates and stuff, so people are panicking less. But I found it to be quite confusing, to be completely honest.
Yeah, they have extended the date, as Lizzie says, maybe to reflect that people are struggling a little bit. It's now August 24th, which is the deadline. It was the 15th, I think it was, but it's now the 24th. I saw a tweet that from the club that says, as of Friday, 16,000 season ticket holders have completed it. So around 2/3, I think that is, or maybe half now actually with the new numbers, have managed to sort of complete it who have gone through. It seems to me, Kev, that when it works fine, it's great. So my season ticket is in my name and was already in my name, so the process was quite easy for me. I sort of said, yeah, still using it. I've got 2 others in my dad's name who we've had to sort of change around to the people who were using them anyway. That's been a little bit more problematic, and it's a kind of a, well, who do you ring when it's not? And I know some of our friends are just going down today, aren't they? They're just going to Anfield because they've sort of, and not everyone is online as much as maybe, we are, and things like that as well. And it just feels like if it works fine, it's been time for people, but any problems, and there's not been that clear where you turn to.
I think that the club get loads of stuff right nowadays, and you get much, much, much more than they used to. The club used to be a shambles. The ticket offer still feels like it's a relatively easy win, and it feels like there could be quite big improvements there. Even little things like when they sent it out, and then on the day they send it out, instead of sending it out to, I don't know how many the servers could handle, 3,000, 5,000, whatever it may be, and staggering them like that, they just send the email to every season ticket holder. You try and log in, and the servers are crashing. It's like, come on, do you know what I mean? You're a massive multi-billion pound company, and you're making little mistakes like this. It just feels like, I'm loath to say customer service, because football isn't about that really. We probably should demand a little bit more customer service, but it isn't really like that. Once I logged in, it was absolutely fine to do. I just left it for a few weeks. Like once it first started, I couldn't log in, the service crashed, so I'll just leave it. Then when I done it, it literally took me 5 minutes, no problems. But I think people were trying to do it with the passports, couldn't get the picture right, couldn't get. It's just like, it just felt like, just run a test before you release this to everybody, and just maybe pick up some of the issues that are going to be obvious that you can see, and they just never seem to do that, because, and then it sort of just gives you the feeling that, well, they don't do it because they're not asked. You're going to have to do it, because if you don't do it and your season ticket goes, there's 10,000 other people there willing to take them off you. So again, I'm not listening. It's a moan for a moan's sake, that really. It's not a massive one. As I say, mine was quite easy. We changed the names over on my dad's as well. He had 2 in his name, so that was a little bit more complicated, but was still relatively straightforward. But again, I haven't had any confirmation that that's gone through or anything like that. Just said you'll get an email back, and I can't even remember the time scale on it, but they haven't asked for the ID for the people whose names it's been changed into or anything like that yet. So I might be saying it's all sound at the moment, and then when I'm trying to put that ID in, it could be a totally different with the update process, I'm fine with them. I'm fine with them wanting to know whose season tickets they are, but it really grates with me that they seem to want to know the ins and outs of everyone who uses them every week, and then people are like, well, they need to know who's in the ground. Well, why do they need to know who's in the ground? It doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? In case something happens. We've been going a match for 100 years. We didn't know who was in the ground. And there's no issues, obviously, that related to no one who was in the ground. There's obviously been issues in grounds before, but for me, it just feels like in the next couple of years, you're going to be in a position whereby you've got to give ID to the people who are going to use your season tickets. And that, for me, it stops people giving the tickets to people who deserve it. I've done it loads of times where I've just said to a kid, like literally in the street outside the ground, if someone hasn't turned up, yeah, like, come in with me. And, it's a kid who wouldn't get the chance otherwise. I think you're going to find people are loath to say, yeah, there's my fan card, go and use it because I can't use it this week. They'll just go, well, I'd rather just keep hold of it and no one gets to go. And I understand from the club's point of view, it's probably about information more than anything else, but it just, I don't know, it rubs me up the wrong way a little, but I think they should be a little bit less stringent on that. All it's like, you can have 6 other people who can use it, but then if they're not able to go, what do we do then? Do we literally just have a case where people are not willing to get the season tickets to somebody because they worry about the club taking them off them? And I understand that the other side of this is they're trying to stop touting. So the club are in a difficult position. I do understand that. But again, it's just, I don't know. For me, it doesn't sit that right. I think I'm a little bit more libertarian about everything. Just let everyone go who wants to go.
How have you found it, Jamie? Have you had to do the process this summer?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of season tickets sort of in amongst our family. So, and they were never in our name. They were in the name of someone called Mark van Baarden, like both of them, and sort of we finally got them transferred over into my dad's name now, and the other one that my brother goes. But like, because we still do share them, it's like one's being transferred into my dad's name, one's in my brother's name, and like my name is on both of them as like willing sort of whatever it is that they call. But then the season ticket that I use for the Cop, which is off my girlfriend's dad, that's in his mate's name, who like doesn't have any sort of email, anything like that. You know what I mean? He's an older fella, so I think there's been a bit more hassle with that. I think Tony, my girlfriend's dad, actually had to go down and sort it out. I think it's sorted now, where my name can be put on it. Do you know what I mean? But I'm still waiting for that one. Thankfully for me, I've got no patience with technology, like at all, and like bureaucracy. Do you know, where it's like, oh, wait for this, oh, you can't do this because you haven't done that. It just pisses me off, like, you know, to no end. Like, I get dead angry, and I probably end up screaming at people on the phone in the ticket office and stuff. So I've been like, I think most people around me know that I'm like that. So, like, my mum took care of my dad's side, all the family season tickets, do you know what I mean? Because she can sit
Get on Hollywood Dean's big time now, when he's got people to do all this stuff.
No, honest to God, like, I just can't do it. I've never been able to do it. Even like when I used to try and, when you used to try and queue up online and get away tickets and stuff like that. Even even like when you go to the ticket office, when the ticket office was open, and like you renew your season ticket, and you'd be the first, collect tickets for the first away of the season, and it'd be like 15 credits. So you just go, having knowing full well that you went to 18 of them on that card last season, then you go, oh, you've only got 12 credits, and you'd be like, no, I haven't. Do you know what I mean? I've been to. Have you got your stubs? No, not on me. No, because I'm half pissed by the time I get off the bus every week. Do you know what I mean? And I just used to get dead wound up. Whereas like other people that go down and go, well, no, let me speak to him. You know what I mean? Put this through, and I just lose my head with shit like that. So, thankfully for me, I think everything's sorted. If it's not sorted, I've only got myself to blame for not being hands-on in it. But yeah, I mean, everyone knows how much of a nightmare it's been with tickets over the years. Do you know what I mean? And, I think while the club are trying the best to sort of to do it, they're trying to eradicate touting, aren't they? And they're trying to do it in a way which doesn't just say, well, right, okay, if you're on it, because let's be honest, I mean, all right, there would be uproar, but in the past with with previous owners and whatnot, if this sort of thing were to happen, you wouldn't put it past someone at the club to go, right, well, if you haven't got proof that it's yours, it's took off yet, and it goes to someone on the waiting list. Do you know what I mean? So at least they are trying to do it the right way, where there's been amnesty after amnesty after amnesty, hasn't there, over the past couple of years, where you can change your name on it at least and stuff like that. So they are trying. It was always going to be a ball ache. It's like that even when you're trying to get cup final tickets and stuff like that. There's always a rigmarole online, isn't there? And servers crashing and stuff like that. It's one of them things, but let's just hope it gets sorted. And we don't even know when we're going back into the ground yet, do we? Do you know what I mean? That's one thing. So they've got a bit of time they've got as much time as we have to sign Mbappe and Thiago. Do you know what I mean? Sort this out. So let's just, for me, I mean, it's easier for me to say I'm not dealing with it, but let's just you know what I mean, give them the benefit of the doubt. Hope it gets sorted out. I mean, thanks very much to my mum and to Tony for sorting out my side of things.
Sounds like a Grammy speech. I think go on.
I've been practicing, and I found out as well my mum tends to watch more things than she doesn't know that I do. So, so I just thought I'd drop a little something in for her.
Shout out for the mums is right.
Yeah. I think what Kev was saying is spot on, because like we are all quite lucky sat here talking the way that we are. But like 2 years ago, I didn't have a season ticket. Or 2 or 3 years ago, I used to go through the rigmarole that everyone goes through, and it is awful. And I've still done it this season, because for my brother's membership card, it's like logging on for the queue. I've done it. I mean, you remember, John, I used to come into work, didn't I, and be like, I'm going to be 15 minutes late because I was on for 3 hours. It's honestly, it's something that they do desperately need to sort out. But also, I think what I was going to say about what Kev said is, that does concern me about like the 6 people say that you're putting your name down on, because a lot of our listeners, and I done it in the past as well, like I relied on going to the game by putting a thing out to me mates, or to like online, or in it might be a Facebook group for some people who listen, to say, do you know of any tickets going? And it would be, you get passed on, and it'd be, oh, this fella's nephew's dog's hairdresser's dad can't go, you need to meet him for his fan card. And that was it. And that's how people get in, because we haven't got a capacity big enough to house our huge supporter base, and that's the reality of it. So like, we're quite lucky sat here moaning about like how long it's taken to get in our name and stuff, but I'm sure we've all been there, but I've been there extremely recently, and know that like you have to rely on people's generosity and people sort of dropping out last minute to get into the match. And if you can't do that, I worry about like the amount of people or the types of people who might not be able to go.
Well, this is, to be honest, this is the first time I'll have ever had a ticket in my name. Do you know what I mean?
Same.
Ever. I mean, even away tickets, everything. You know, I think the only time I'll have ever had in my name was because I'd got off the for working. Do you know what I mean? Basically, but other than that, I've never had a ticket in my name before. So yeah, you're right there, listen, I'd never even thought about that. There will be loads of people who, well, I don't think it'll matter as much with away games and stuff like that, because other sorts of grounds aren't going to enforce a picture, are they, and stuff like that. But definitely with the home games, I mean, it's gonna make it harder for some people, but it's gonna make it a lot safer in terms of talent. You'd think, do you know what I mean? Because it's going to be by the book, but who knows?
It is funny, Kev, because like, I mean, we've got mates who've been going for years and they wouldn't even know where the ticket office was. Do you know what I mean? If you asked them to get there, I think they'd say, well, probably in Anfield somewhere. But like, the idea is like, you just it's passing money to someone in the pub or on the train down or on the coach or whatever, and that's sort of where tickets happen for them. And you do wonder sort of. I just assume that will continue, because it just always sort of has.
Yeah, I think that it feels like the club want to stop that, but that's sort of the lifeblood of people being fortunate to go to the game. It's not everyone. Not everyone can say at the start of the season, okay, I'm going to sit for half a day, as it sometimes takes on those member sales, and they can't afford to pay 350 quid or whatever it costs you to buy a block of tickets like that. So you can't expect a young kids, they start going the game because they're fortunate enough to find somebody who's got a spare ticket, or they get birthday money and they ask around, and can you sort that out for me? And I understand that people might be listening to this thinking, well, that's all right for you if you know people who go to the match. But I don't know everyone who goes to the match, and I don't go to the club before the games, and I haven't got an uncle who'll do it. People might be listening to this thinking, well, it's fair if everyone has got to apply online and then you get the tickets that way. And I understand that, but I look at it from, how do we get more local youngsters in there? And they get in there when people like us can't go to the game. And you say, oh yeah, he's mad about Liverpool, take him, give it to him. And that's how they start going, and that's how they get the bug, and that's how things like Spying Cop 1906 comes about. And it's a whole ethos in the club. And as you say, John, how many times have you done it? Like, I remember you done the thing for the lads, go to match with Gibbons.
Yeah.
And he ends up going for about 3 seasons or something, didn't he? Every time he turned up, he was there.
Yeah. He did very well out of that. Like,
he was sound, the kid, though, wasn't he?
Yeah, his boss, Tom, yeah.
Tom, that was it. Yeah, to be able to do that, it's a nice thing to be able to do. And I understand the club are probably thinking, well, we've got 10,000 people moaning that we can't get online. But you're not going to please all the people all the time, and I think it's important that local youngsters, it's hard enough for them to get in, and it shouldn't be another thing that means, okay, well, you can't come, even if they get to the point where they say, okay, 6 people on your season ticket, these are the ones you can go, but if you're under 25, don't worry about it, you can just give it to an under 25 for whatever you want. Now that might be an arbitrary age or an arbitrary rule or whatever, but they need to do something whereby people can still get that sort of first experience of going to Anfield and thinking, wow, this is magic, this, and I want more of it, and I want to be a part of it. Because a lot of people's first experiences is of someone saying to me, lad, you have that ticket, or especially away games. So how many times have you seen lads who just got on a train and gone to London and stood outside the ground just on the off chance to get a ticket? And 9 times out of 10, if they do that, they do get in there somehow. You don't want to stop that because you want people to have that opportunity. And I understand it's difficult for the club and it's not ideal if people are doing that. But that's a Liverpool tradition. It's a tradition of a lot of football clubs, and it's something that we should do our best to try and keep it going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We'll see how it goes, Lizzie. I think most people are sort of managing to get through. The club are sort of saying if you are in the system, then you'll be fine type thing. But we just hope that, when Liverpool do return and when we are all back in grounds, it's going to be a special thing. And you don't want the situation where 3,000 people are outside because the car's not working.
It's going to happen, that, isn't it? Because can you remember when they first switched the European? So I was in the Auto Cup, but I enrolled in the Cop instead of in the main stand so I can be with my brother, because the Auto Cup means that you can go with someone else, doesn't it? And like you can get two together and you can go in a different stand. You don't have to go in the place that your season ticket is. So my ticket's in the main stand, but for the League Cup, FA Cup and the Champions League, I'm enrolled in the Cop with our Mike and one of his mates. I've lost my train of thought. Why was this like? What have you just asked me? Oh yeah. So basically, because it's not on your season ticket and it's in a different seat. I remember the first time that they stopped it being paperless. So I used to have to drive up to like Verzaghely every 2 weeks and pick up like a cup ticket and then come back because it was paper. Then they changed and they got rid of paperless tickets, and they thought, basically your season ticket, even though it says main stand, when you buzz in, it'll register that you're meant to be in the Cop. And I remember that first night, it was a European game, I can't remember which one it was, and there was murder. Like, I knew people who'd done exactly the same thing, because it's a very natural thing to do. It's one of the only opportunities, which is also an issue, to be with someone else that you know in the ground, like, because I sit on my own, whereas this gave me an opportunity to be with my brother and be with someone that I knew. And loads of people got locked out, for about half an hour. So I hope that doesn't happen again. I have a feeling it will, because it is a very Liverpool thing to do. But I think, like, I don't know what the system's going to be. They're talking about, like, there's all, you've seen all the sorts of presumptions and all this, like facial recognition and all stuff like that. I mean, if in the nicest way
5G.
possible, honestly, if they can't bring the ticketing site into the 21st century, how do we expect them to start putting all this stuff in the ground in time for us to be back in, which the predicted date is October? I don't know how it works. I really, really don't know how it works. And I don't mean that to be like a pessimist. I'm trying to be quite realistic about it through the sorts of experiences I've had with tickets.
Yeah, no. Okay. We'll leave it there for today. Huge thanks to Lizzie, to Kev, and to Jamie for joining us. We're going to do a little preview now for the new LFC Women's season. So that starts in early September. A few of us got together. It was myself and a couple of others who to talk about the new LFC Women's season. So we're going to go on to that now. But in the meantime, thanks a lot to the guys for joining me, and enjoy. So it is John Gibbons, and I'm joined by Leanne, Prescott, and Philippa Smallwood to look ahead to the new season for LFC Women. And I would start by saying, Philippa, nothing reinforces the feeling of a relegation quite like new fixtures. We used to see in Arsenal, Chelsea, games like that. It's not anymore. It's Durham and a team that I didn't even know existed before all this. It does kind of really kind of remind you in a brutal way that Liverpool aren't going to be a Super League One team this season.
Yeah, I mean, at first when they got relegated, I was obviously really disappointed with the decision, and that got made, and the fact that, like, Liverpool basically only having played 64% of the fixtures, we're ending up being relegated. But I think when you look at it now, we should be one of the stronger sides in the Championship, and hopefully we get to see the team win an awful lot more games than what they did last season. I think they've got a really tough couple of fixtures to start out with. Durham is one of the better sides in the division, which thankfully that's the first game, that's at home. I think you'd rather play them at home than not. We did actually play Durham last season.
We played them a few times, haven't we, recently?
Yeah, we played them the season before. We drew 3-3, and then last season we won 3-1. So hopefully, that gives us a bit of confidence for that first game. And then London Bees away, a ground that I've actually been to, down at the Hive. So it's probably one of the best women's grounds, I would say. It's a nice little setup there, right sort of size for the women's game. So two good games to be starting off with, I would say, and hopefully we get off to a really good start. I wouldn't like us to be dropping points in those first 2 games. You want to try and build a bit of momentum and a bit of confidence, I would say, going into the rest of the fixtures. I mean, if I talk about what's happened over the summer a little bit, I'm really pleased to see the number of players that Liverpool actually managed to keep hold of. I was really worried when the decision was made that we would see the majority of the squad leave. And I would say out of all of those that have left, there's only really Niamh Charles that really makes a dent.
And that felt inevitable as well. That one.
Yeah, you can't blame her for making that decision. She's gone to Chelsea, and who can turn that down. The one of the best sides in the league, and good luck to her. But that was the one that hurt. She's a homegrown talent, and you would like to see her back at Liverpool one day, maybe when we're back at the top of the game. Hopefully, she says. But the rest of the players that went were I wouldn't say they were a bit packed, because 2 of them were goalkeepers who were in and out of the side, both of them. But the others that left, I don't think were guaranteed starters. But the team that they managed to keep hold of, I was really pleased with, and then they've made some additional signings in the summer. One being Kirsty Laws, who's a really good goalkeeper. I think she's a real strong signing. And then we've got a new striker in, who I'm looking forward to seeing play. So I'm feeling really quite positive, and a lot more positive than I thought I would do when the decision was made.
That's good. How positive are you feeling, Leanne? Because Philippa's right, in my opinion, in that, we did get the problem is you get the exits first, don't you? And it seemed to be day after day of players sort of saying their farewells, and what are we going to sort of have left? But I think more did stay than I expected. Certainly a couple of star names. I would say Lizzi would be the most obvious one, who I would thought would get snapped up by a Premier League club, hasn't. And then the signings look to me to be good caliber as well. So are you sharing in our optimism?
Yeah, I think when Liverpool got relegated, it was a big moment, especially with the men's doing so well. It's an opportunity for the club and the wider kind of executives to take stock and to realise that this is a club who were winning titles, now relegated. Something's got to change. And as you've said there, I think the worry was that players were going to leave, players wouldn't buy into the project, because a lot of the noise coming out of the club were that when these players were leaving, they were saying, I can't wait to be at a club where I can enjoy my football. And it kind of gave the impression that Liverpool wasn't a club trying to promote its women's team. So I think, you point to Rinsler there. She's a very, very good player. She's probably one of the brightest sparks of Liverpool's season last year. And she's staying, which is great news. Niamh Charles, yes, a blow. But I think the thing for Liverpool and the thing for Vicky was to keep hold of the majority of her players, to really make them buy into this idea that Liverpool can bounce straight back. And as Philippa said there's some good signings. There's some experienced signings. Taylor from Everton, 21 years old, bright fullback. That I can't pronounce her name properly, but Thesrup, I think it is, from Roma, 25. She won a few titles. And Liverpool's problem last season was really goals. I was looking at Durham, and they scored 33 goals in 14 games compared to Liverpool's 8. So that's kind of the worry. I wouldn't say I'm pessimistic. I think the Championship is a tougher league than a lot of people give it credit for, because the WSL isn't necessarily widely known among some football fans. Some kind of attentions to women's football in England is still pretty minimal, and so when you're going down to the Championship, that's even smaller. But it's a very competitive league. It won't be easy to bounce back. And I think that Durham game to start off with gives Liverpool an opportunity to really lay down a marker early on and say, okay, goals was our problem. We've brought in a striker. Here we go again. We've kept the team together, and we're here to kind of, get us back to where we want to be.
Philippa, Leanne mentions the executives at Liverpool and the sort of greater focus, if you like, needed if we want a successful women's team. One person who seemed to me to be a sort of ally of the women's team, if you like, and certainly invested in their development was Peter Moore. He's now left. Does that concern you a little bit in terms of, he's going to be replaced by Billy Hogan? Now we don't know Billy Hogan's intentions for the women's team, but does that worry you that you think, well, there wasn't enough attention on it anyway, and the one guy who did go to games and the one guy who did seem to be quite frank, give a shit, has now left?
Yeah, I mean, that was my first thought, actually, when I saw that Peter Moores was leaving. It was like, what now for the women's team? Especially when you're hearing noises that Billy Hogan's probably going to be based down in London. And, I think, to help the women's team, I think you need to kind of understand what they require, and I'm not sure that you can get a feel for that if you're not close by and paying more attention. I mean, whether or not they change the setup slightly, and maybe it's not that particular role that takes control of the women's team, maybe they get somebody else to do it, I don't know, maybe Leanne knows more than what we do, but there's a lot of people that have been very critical, and I've been one of them, as to the investment into the women's team, and that's why I'm surprised and pleased with what's happened over the summer, because I think it's showing that the players that were here and that have stayed do feel like there's something to fight for, that there is a direction that the club's trying to go in, and I'm trying to look at that as an indicator as to what the club are planning to do, rather than the people that have left and have made comments, and the fact that Peter Moore has left. I'm trying to keep my mind open and to be as optimistic about it as I can be, but I mean, I saw something the other day where apparently there's talk, because the Tranmere deal runs out after this season, that the club are looking at something in relation to where they're going to train, because at the moment they train outside of Prenton Park.
Yeah.
And I think that would be positive. I think they need to try and integrate the women's team more into the club as a whole, to get more people understanding as to the fact that there is a women's team there, and that it's just as deserving as attention and adulation as maybe the men's team is. And I know it's difficult, because obviously the men's team's been going an awful lot longer. But if we want to be serious about women's football and about the Liverpool women's team, then we need to highlight it more. We need to be on the ball more with what's going on. There needs to be more reporting. There needs to be more attention on it. And I think that we can all play a part in that. I'm not pointing the finger at anybody else. I think myself included. That we can all do more. We can go to more games. We can follow the team more. And we can be more vocal about it. And I think that's something that many of us plan to do in the future.
Yeah, there's been quite a few autopsies over the last couple of months, Leanne, and some really excellent articles written about the Liverpool women's team from quite wide. I got a message from a Brazilian journalist about it, which I wasn't sort of expecting, but just shows that the potential is there. And this is Liverpool Football Club, and there will be attention on every aspect of it. And the best stuff I read sort of suggested that what had gone wrong was as much focus as it was sort of financial investments. I read one article which had spoke to a number of agents who work in the women's game. They were saying actually that the wage bill at Liverpool wasn't too bad. I mean, it wasn't up there with Chelsea and Arsenal, but they should have been a mid-table side, based on what they were sort of spending. And you can argue that's not good enough for Liverpool, but the point is, it wasn't sort of a relegate. It wasn't a team starved of resources that was inevitably going to be relegated. Instead, the sort of complaints coming out from the people who've left was much on just the feeling they got within the football club of the priority. And as Philippa says, it isn't, certainly in the short term going to be the same priority as the men's team, but there's a world of difference between that and kind of feeling like it's an afterthought, or you're just something kind of shoved over there and brought out when's convenience.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that sometimes people forget is, you know, that there's an easy argument to say these are professional footballers. You get on, you play the game, whatever kind of environment you're in. But I think if you're at a club and you don't feel like they're invested in you, you don't feel like you're in the atmosphere or the environment that kind of makes you want to be better, makes you want to play your best game, then inevitably you're going to want to leave. I think, you know, Courtney Sweetman-Kirk was quite vocal when she left, and she said, I just want to enjoy playing again. Niamh Charles, I think, might have been the only one that didn't really point towards Liverpool doing something wrong. And for me, that kind of speaks volumes. We can talk about, you know, the executives needing to be more on board. Jurgen Klopp has been quite vocal as well. You're saying, you know, Peter Moore's quite good. Jurgen Klopp did send Vicky Jepson messages last season and was kind of showing support, obviously, before the game at Anfield. But it's trying to find a way to really integrate Liverpool Women into the wider picture, whether that's using the new training complex or whether that's, you know, more investment in the wider pitches and facilities. That's something that the club do need to work on. And I think, you know, that then filters down in terms of the players realising that, okay, we are valued, we are wanted, let's, you know, strive to get back to the WSL. And that's why, you know, as we said, keeping some of those key players that maybe Liverpool didn't expect to keep is a good sign. I think, you know, Babajide probably doesn't stay if she's not got some kind of a message from the club to say, look, it is going to be better. We are going to try and bounce back. We are going to try and invest in good players, which we've seen. Look, it's a massive job that Liverpool Women have to do now. And I think, as Philippa said there, that the reporting on the women's game isn't necessarily what it should be. When you go down to the Championship, that's going to be even worse. I mean, some of the teams no one will have heard of. London Bees, people might think that's like a nickname for a team. That's actually their name. So, you know, it kind of exemplifies the fact that unlike men's football, when you know things about League One or League Two or even non-league football, the WSL is very siloed, and Liverpool just need to try and get back there as soon as they can. And, you know, put on a show this season, improve where they can. And yeah, to try to bounce back, really. I think the one thing I'd point to, again, it comes back to what went wrong last season is Rachel Furness came in at probably January or mid-season, and she ended up as the club's top goal scorer with 4 goals. So, you know, I think when we're looking at and analysing what went wrong, that sort of tells the picture.
No, absolutely. But we'll finish on a positive, though, and you know, we want people to support this team, Philippa, and you know that they will be better. You know, we no one knows their value of supporters quite as much as of this club, but you sort of arguably, and we know what we can do for teams, and we don't know when we're going to be able to get into the ground to watch. But there's other ways to support, and there's other ways, you know, to kind of take an interest. These first 2 games will hopefully be able to, you know, to be viewed in some way. You'd have thought. We know there's no men's game the weekend of the 5th, which will be the first game. There's international football, so there's a chance for all of us. You know, some of us might have watched bits, some of us might have watched any, but just to kind of, you know, maybe tune in that weekend, you know, either to watch it live or to the highlights, and just say, well, let's see what this new team's about, because it is going to be a new team. It's got, you know, there's a young manager, you know, in charge of it, and yeah, let's just all of us approach it with an open mind and see what's going to happen next season. We're all hoping for something good. We're all hoping for to bounce back, but right now it should be about sort of pre-season optimism, and well, let's wait and see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the games are all available on the FA Player to be able to watch them live. I'm not sure about if there's highlights afterwards, but I know last season that they did have highlights packages on LFC TV though. So, you know, you can find ways to watch the team. I know that they've done it live on Facebook before now as well. I don't know if that's an option with the FA Player, but you know, I'm looking forward to tuning in on the 6th of September and seeing them take on Durham, seeing where this team's at. You know, none of us really know at this stage how it's going to go, but I'm as optimistic as I can be, and you know, I'm looking forward to seeing them pull on the red jersey and you know, fighting for this team, for this club. I think they've got a really good squad of players who do care about the club and, you know, who will fight for the club. you know, they're a very likeable bunch for me. And, you know, when we can get back into the ground, there's something rather unique, I think, in the women's game where, you know, kids can actually go and, you know, meet the players after the final whistle. And I think that's something that, you know, is really good about the women's game. You know, it is a really family-friendly environment. And, you know, I would recommend that anybody with kids, you know, gives it a go when we're able to. But, you know, who knows when we're all going to be able to go back into the grounds. I'm kind of hoping that with the women's game that they'll see an opportunity there, because the crowds aren't as big, that, you know, that they will see that as maybe you know, somewhere where they can trial some things. I'm hoping so anyway, because I just want to get out there and see some live action sport, to be honest. But let's see what happens.
Let's see. Okay, huge thanks to Philippa and to Leanne. We're going to be featuring the women's team more over the next season. We've sort of let the side down a little bit at the Anfield wrap over the last year or so. We're happy to admit that it isn't always easy, especially with game clashes and things like that. But we do strive to do better in terms of following and supporting the women's team. So we'll hopefully be doing a bit more. And if you don't feel like we are, feel free to hold us to account on it. Hopefully we'll have a few more people helping us out this season as well, who we're speaking to. But in the meantime, thanks a lot to Philippa and to Leanne, and to you guys for listening. Enjoy your week. That's been the Anfield Wrap.